Hello and welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not the Mouse, the podcast all about animation not made by the mouse. I'm your host, Octaviano, and today I'll be talking about a movie that was nominated for Best Animated Film this recent year, but didn't get an official theatrical release in the US until just recently. That is the 2D Spain film Robot Dreams. Honestly, saw it in theaters mainly because, one, nominated for Best Animated Feature. It's a foreign film, already gives it a lot of, credit, so, was expecting something good. But also, it's 2D, so it's always nice to see 2D in the big screen. Before we get started, I just want to say, if you're listening to this on YouTube, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe to the channel, feel free to comment, and ring the bell for notifications. Also, if you're on Spotify or just any other podcast site, follow this show on those platforms. Robot Dreams. It's a foreign feature. It's about an hour and 40 minutes, and it's silent, so this is a whole movie where the visuals hard carry the story. And you know what? That's great. I mean, not that I'm against foreign films. Obviously, I've talked about foreign films on here. But of course, it's always nice to see a movie where you can grasp the whole story just by what you're seeing. Of course, film is a visual medium, and a lot of times there are movies that forget about that, where a lot of the stuff is done through dialogue, which is not bad. Of course, if you have sound, use it. But it is always nice to see when a movie decides, okay, we are telling the story visually, so let's do everything we can to make it make sense in that way. As a result, even though this is a movie from Spain, you can watch it easily without any issues. In fact, if you're an American, you'll notice that the movie is set in New York anyways, so at times you may even forget that it's a film from Spain. There is use of pop music in this, most noticeably with the song September by Earth, Wind & Fire. And it's not something that was done for like the US release to make it more palatable. It was something that was intentionally made for the film. As a result, again, you won't be lost watching this one. And it is a very nice movie to watch. It's incredible just the way it's delivered visually, to just the emotion that you get once you go through the whole movie. Because essentially what the whole movie is about is this is a world of anthropomorphic animals, and you got the main character who's a dog named Dog, because realistically the names don't matter, and Dog is alone in the world, so he, after watching an ad, decides to buy a robot friend, hence Robot. At first they're having a good time, it's summertime, things get complicated when they're at the beach, and Robot gets stuck on the beach due to a lack of lubrication. Further complicated by the fact that since it's the end of the summer, the beach has been closed, so Dog has no way to return to Robot to fix him up without getting caught by the police. So the whole movie is just about Dog waiting for the beaches to reopen while Robot waits to be fixed by his friend. Caught me off guard, I'm not gonna lie, because if you watch the trailer to this, most of it is just, hey look, here's Robot and here's Dog, and they're palling around. And while there is clips of stuff that happens later in the movie, like a good trailer, it's done in a way where you don't really know what's going on. So a lot of the movie just caught me off guard in that regard. Just seeing like, okay, here's Robot's interpretation of what's going on. He's essentially dreaming, hence the name Robot Dreams, because he's imagining these scenarios, or maybe he's not in some cases, while Dog is going through his own life while waiting for this. And at a certain point you get the idea that he forgets about it, but you of course get reminded like, no, he did care deeply for Robot, so he is just going through life. But you don't notice with the understanding like, look, there's no way for me to get back to the beach until it opens back up for the summertime, so I just gotta do what I can. And this could have easily been like a break-in movie. Like, it could have easily been him planning how to break into it, but I do like the approach it took of just letting him basically go through his own life. Of course, being sad about the loss of Robot, while also just finding different things that he might not have never noticed in his life before. I don't really want to get into it, just because, it is currently in theaters for the US. The movie's been out for over a year if you go elsewhere. So it's not like I'm really spoiling anything that's too recent, but still, it's such a beautiful movie, and I do love how it ultimately ends with these two in regards to their friendship. It is a happy ending, but it is kind of bittersweet. But I'm not gonna go into it more. Point being that it leads to some really interesting stuff. There's a lot of fun in the visuals. At some point, there's like a whole dream sequence kind of based off of the Wizard of Oz, because that's one of the movies that they watched early on, and it's just a whole bunch of different things going on. Very fun movie to watch. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I really have too much to say on this one. This might end up being one of the shorter episodes, but we'll see, because I feel like almost every time that I actually acknowledge that it's a shorter episode, it ends up being longer than it actually is, from my guess. I'll say that, yeah, I think this might be one of the shorter episodes. For the most part, it's a movie that I highly recommend watching. I don't know if it'll still be in theaters by the time this video comes up, because unfortunately I do shoot these ahead of time, so it might be out. I know the thing is that this movie came out theatrically for us, of course, May 31st. As of this recording, I'm in the middle of June, and it only recently got into my one of my local theaters, so that's why I'm talking about it now. So again, I don't know whether or not once this goes up, which will probably be until July, that it'll still be on theaters. Hopefully by that point it's on some streaming service. I would definitely recommend watching it in theaters if possible, but I know that's probably not going to be an option by the time this goes up, unfortunately. In regards to this, like I said, I saw it in theaters. I actually saw it kind of as a double feature to Inside Out 2. I'm not going to go too much into that movie, but I will say it's okay. I think it's one of the weaker Pixar sequels, which doesn't really mean much because a lot of the Pixar sequels are. I'll say this much: none of the Pixar sequels, in my opinion, are bad, but most of them aren't great. I know I'm in the minority for Inside Out 2 because a lot of people are calling it the best one since Toy Story 3. I don't think so, but I will say this much: the funny thing is that that movie has a very emotional climax, and to be fair, it is pretty emotional. I get to an extent where people are coming from just because of that climax. But I bring this up because Robot Dreams has what to me actually got me more. Like like in theaters, I was kind of cheering up and thinking about it just days after, because that ending has been stuck in my head. I'm still kind of crying. I'm not gonna spoil it again, but I will say this much: if you thought that the use of September was kind of random early on in the movie, which it really isn't, but if you thought it was random, when you actually see it used again at the end of the movie, it's one of the most, it's one of the greatest payoffs I've seen in recent memory with an animation. It's just a nice way to tie everything up as September starts playing and Robot and Dog react to it. I won't give more than that away, but I felt happy. I was kind of cheering up. It was kind of like I'm probably giving it away at this point, but to me it's pretty much the Fox and the Hound ending combined with An American Tale. The way that movie ends, I'm not gonna go beyond that, but yeah, it's definitely one that hit hard, and it's such a nice, beautiful way for this movie to close out on. And in that regard, it really would be nice if more foreign films, I would say 2D in general, but I'm gonna go a step further and say foreign films in general got bigger, wider releases and were treated around the same as like a blockbuster for movie theaters. Like, I don't know, like I guess these distributors, since they're not really intended to make much, don't put too much money on it. But I'm like, man, this one, I kind of wish that they would market it more just so more people can watch it, without it just being the people like me who are already invested in animation, already interested in watching these kinds of things. Like, it'd be nice to see more people who are just going out, never even thought about watching a foreign film, but they got some interest in it. I don't know. It's, I mean, of course, it doesn't even have to be for animation. I've been wanting this for more movies, just in general, where it's like, put some foreign films in there. There's a lot of really great stuff in the world that we don't get to see because movie studios just see it like, oh, well, this is a foreign thing, so people in America are not going to be interested. And people are. People are going to be interested in a good story. And if given the right treatment, I mean, of course, you're not even spending too much on these to begin with. You're re-releasing them. So what are you really losing in just putting it out there, putting it out in maybe slower weeks, and I don't know, letting fate decide whether or not people go out and watch it, because it is pretty sad that we only get foreign films, like that get like big wide releases when it's like the safe bet, like the one that is like, yeah, this is guaranteed to be making money. Like even like of course the Miyazaki movies get their fair due, but I feel like even they had to struggle a little bit just to get um, a big wide release. Artman no longer gets the big wide releases. They're putting them on Netflix, and that sucks. Netflix is where a lot of movies go to die. I love the app. I'm not gonna say that it's never brought me anything worthwhile. I love using it as a way to find movies that I've already seen. I love using it as a way to find new movies. But there's no denying that when it comes to stuff that gets released on there directly, it gets buried under a large amount of crap that results in it never being seen. And if they don't promote it, no one watches it. There's movies that they say that are some of the biggest hits on Netflix that no one's even heard of. Like, they were shouting about how much a movie like I believe it was called Red Notice, the Ryan Reynolds Dwayne Johnson movie with Gal Gadot, or Gal Gadot, whatever. I shouldn't say that, but point being that she was also in it, and like they say, it's like, oh, this is the biggest hit on Netflix or whatever, and it's like, ask your coworker how many, like, have you seen it, and if you'll notice that you're gonna get a lot of people who are like, we've never even heard of it. Like, it's crazy to me that movies that don't do so well in the theaters still get talked about more by a general, like, by like people, just regular people, than the big hits of like Netflix. Because I'm like, I've had more people talk to me about Argyle, which was not a movie that made money. It was not a big hit, than I have had for, that Ryan Reynolds, Dwayne Johnson movie. And that was supposedly a big hit. I mean, of course, there are some movies that people talk about on Netflix, but it's very rare. I mean, I heard people talk about Bird Box, maybe once or twice when it released, but, compare that to, like, oh, look, here's a bunch of people still talking about Furiosa as it's flopping, as it, they're saying that it didn't make money in theaters. I don't know, that's crazy to me. I don't know, it's a bit of a tangent, but point being is, like, I think foreign films deserve better than just being put on a streaming service that no one's gonna watch. And I do think that they deserve better than getting a very limited theatrical release that, again, a lot of people aren't gonna get the opportunity to watch, because this one deserves to be watched. It's probably out by the time that this video goes up, so can't say anything on that. But regardless, if there's an option to find it somewhere by the time this goes up, if it's on Amazon, if it's on Netflix, if it's in whatever, I hope against hope that you go out and seek it, based on me telling you that it's a good time, because Robot Dreams is beautiful. The animation is great. It's very simple and stylistic, but it's nice the way it flows. The way they utilize music was great. I love the fact that it's told visually entirely, so no one's gonna get lost. It's not gonna be something where it's like, oh, they're gonna make like a, you know, witty joke that will only make sense if you're really aware of the English language or anything like that. It's gonna be something where like what you see is what you get, and that's pretty amazing as far as I'm concerned. I love that it exists. I'm glad that we got it. I wish we would have gotten it sooner when the award season was around, so that there was more hype around it. But that we get it now is perfectly fine by me because it's an amazing movie. You know what? Since it's releasing now instead of earlier in the year, I'm gonna count it as a movie for this year. It's one of my top favorite movies released this year. Even though technically speaking, it was released last year, but hey, it was released in the U.S. this year, so that's what I'm saying. Great time, highly recommend it. You should go out and watch it too. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks for stopping by. Go ahead and follow this channel. Subscribe, like, and comment. Ring the bell for notifications. Go ahead and also follow my podcast. And give some love to my Patreon account while you're at it. It's www.patreon.com/saicams. Again, thanks for stopping by, and I hope you come back for more in the future.